Jacob and Joseph have finally been reunited, but Jacob doesn't have much longer to live and wants to pass on a blessing to his 12 sons. But who will get the major blessing? Will it be Reuben, his firstborn? Will it be Joseph, his favorite? Or would it be any of the other 12 brothers? Let's find out. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Tally Talks Bible. We are on the final two chapters of Genesis. Now, in the last video where we left off, Jacob, Israel, had blessed Joseph's two sons. Well, now, Jacob knows that he doesn't have much longer left before he dies, and he wishes to pass on the blessing of the Lord to his 12 sons. Well, not all these blessings are going to be what you would call blessings. So, chapter 49 is going to go over that and talk about all the blessings or curses that he places upon his 12 children, and then following up with his passing. So, let's get right into it and get started. Starting out right here on chapter 9, or excuse me, chapter 49. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in the days to come. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to your father, Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel, for you went up unto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it." All right, so I'm going to try to pause here after it talks about each son. So, right there, what it's talking about with Reuben. Reuben was his firstborn son to Leah. However, after Rachel died, he tried to usurp his father by going into his father's tent and laying with Bilhah, which Bilhah was Rachel's servant. It's actually, if you remember back, he married Leah. Leah gave her his servant. Then he finally got to marry Rachel, but Rachel gave her servant to him as well. So Bilhah was Rachel's servant. So Reuben had feared that if his father had continued on with Bilhah, that his mother Leah would be, pushed back even further. So he tried to go ahead of his father and claim, the blessing for himself, basically. So because of that, he's telling him, you're no longer going to be a part of this. Like, you're still going to be, he's still in the blessing and everything, but you're not going to receive the major blessing. Let's continue on here. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger, and hamstring oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. All right. So this is kind of going in order from how his children were born. Next, we have, excuse me, Simeon and Levi. I couldn't remember Simeon's name for some reason. Simeon and Levi. If you recall what they did back in Shechem, when their sister was taken and raped, they were a big part of, they tricked the people and saying, hey, if you get circumcised, we'll join together with you. But then while the men there were recovering from the circumcision, they went in and killed everybody. So because of that, they're not receiving a blessing either. Now we're going to get to Judah. And it starts here. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son will bow down to you. You are a lion cub, Judah. You return from the prey, my son. Like a lion he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nation shall be his. He will tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. So that stops with Judah right there. If you notice, there's a lot going on here with Judah. So basically, what he's telling Judah is talking about him being a lion. I'm sure people have heard the Lion of Judah. Um, that's a reference to his strength, his cunning, his prowess, and it also talks about how the other brothers will come to bow to him, the other nations, because this all these brothers, we'll see all these names coming back in Exodus. These are actually going to be the 12 tribes of Israel. And it's talking about he will tether his donkey to a vine. A lot of times, donkeys will thrash around wherever they are and destroy things. But saying that it would tether him to the vine means there's going to be an abundance of you know everything he's going to have. Like it's talking about grapes, which grapes come into wine, and for you to wash your clothes in wine, that's just absurd. So it's just talking about how rich he's going to be, that he's going to be able to wash his clothes in wine. And it goes on to talk about how his eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth will be whiter than milk. That's just talking about all the people of Judah are going to be beautiful, just gorgeous people. So Judah, we're actually seeing here with Judah, Judah's actually getting a blessing versus the first three brothers who received more like a curse. Then we're going to come to Zebulun here, and it says Zebulun will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships. His borders will extend towards Sidon. Uh, it, for his territory, he wasn't really near the ocean, but the surrounding area was kind of close to like the ocean. So it's saying his where his area is, it kind of like ends up extending out towards that area, and that's really all it says about him. And like I said, all these names are going to come back, and it's going to make more sense later on in the narrative once we get into Exodus. Then we come to Ishkar. He's a raw boned donkey lying down among the sheep pens. When he sees how good his resting place, excuse me, when he sees how good is his resting place and how pleasant it is, his land, my gosh, I cannot talk, and how pleasant is his land, he will bend his shoulder to the burden and submit to forced labor. That's basically saying he's going to have a lot of land. It's going to be good land, but he'd rather not work it. Calling him lazy, basically. Now we're going to get to Dan. Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heel so that its rider tumbles backwards. I look for deliverance, Lord. Oh, excuse me. I'll come back to that one. Uh, it's really hard to discern when to stop here on this. Dan will be a snake. It's calling back to Genesis 2 with the serpent. There's a snake. What does a snake do? He's a deceiver. Um, so it's basically saying that Dan is going to be a judge of people, but he's not going to judge them fairly. That's what this is saying here. Uh, okay, where I'm going to pick back up on verse 18 here. I look for your deliverance, Lord. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels. So Gad, once we get in further, the area that Gad's in, he tends to have a lot of trouble with neighboring tribes attacking. So all this is basically saying, hey, this will come to pass. Everything that's being listed down here will come to pass. And a lot of stuff is like you read this, then you go and read that, then you're like, oh wait, let me go back here and look. Oh, it says it right here. It wants you to like read. You're not just supposed to read the Bible one time and then put it down. You're supposed to read it, study on it, go back here, go back there. It's really, really something to get into. You have to deep dive into these things. But I make these videos to try to help people because I know I had a lot of trouble when I first started. I'm not much of a reader myself. Now we're going to get to Asher. Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. That's just basically saying that the food that comes out of his land will be great. Um, that's all he really has to say about him. Uh, says Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Not much there. Um, uh, just saying that he's going to be there, open and free, and his children will be fruitful, multiply, have a lot of people. Now we're going to get to Joseph, and Joseph is the longest next to Judah, which we probably saw this coming. So it begins. Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring, whose branches climb over a wall. With bitterness, archers attack him. They shot at him with hostility, but his bow remained steady. His strong arm stayed limber. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father's God, who helps you, because of the Almighty who blessed you, with blessings of the skies above, blessings of the deep springs below, blessings of the breast and womb. Your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of the ancient mountains, than the bounty of the age old hills. Let all the rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. That right there to me is pretty self explanatory. Joseph had these dreams all these many chapters ago, all these years ago, that his brothers would bow down to him. And here Jacob is, he's recognizing this like because of my God, the God of fathers, he's been the God, blessed you, and it shows. And it even made mention that talking about the steady bow, which means his brothers and everybody, he was attacked on all sorts of fronts. His brothers, threw him in a cistern. His brothers sold him into slavery. He didn't really retaliate. And then he gets to Egypt and he's working in Egypt as a slave and he moves up. And then the Potiphar's wife tries to do things and he doesn't fight that. He gets put in prison and then he's elevated through the prison and gets elevated past the prison into second command of all of Egypt. And that's basically that's what he's saying right here. And he's saying that it will continue even after this. Then we get to the last son, the youngest, which is Joseph's brother, Benjamin. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf in the morning and he devours the prey. In the evening, he divides the plunder. So that's just basically talking about how his people are going to be mighty warriors, basically. The tribe of Benjamin, it gets into him, and they become great warriors and fighters of the such. And then we're going to finish this up right here. It says, all these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. And that was all 12 sons. Some were cursed, what it seems like, but they're still going to continue on. All these sons are still going to continue on. They're going to be in Egypt. They're going to be fruitful and multiply. We're going to see that once we start getting into Exodus. And now it comes to the time of the death of Jacob. Then he gave them these instructions: I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my father in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite. There Abram and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were bought from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. So the end of this chapter is just saying, hey, Jacob has passed on. And now um, he's going to be gathered to his people. He wants to be buried back, in Canaan, where his father is, where Abraham is. And the start of chapter 50 here is going to talk about all that, about how they basically had funeral service for him and traveling back to Canaan to put him in the cave. So I'm going to start right on it. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph directed the physicians in his service to embalm his father, Israel. So the physicians embalmed him, taking a full 40 days, for that was the time required for embalming. And the Egyptians mourned him 70 days. When the days of mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh's court, if I have found favor in your eyes, speak to Pharaoh for me. Tell him, my father made me swear an oath and said, I am about to die. Bury me in the tomb I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go up and bury my father, then I will return. So here we have it. The embalming process, it says, takes 40 days. And then it says that they mourned 70 days. In these times, uh, which it mentioned 40 days for embalming, but says 70 days mourning. 30 days was typically the mourning process for the Hebrews. They would mourn for 30 days. So this is basically taking the 40 days embalming plus the 30 days of mourning. That's where they get the 70 days from. Um, and also, he doesn't go directly to the Pharaoh to say, hey, I need to leave to bury my father. He's telling, officials that are around him, go speak with Pharaoh for me. And it's believed this is because he's been with his dead father, been around the dead body. So that would be considered unclean, ritually unclean to be presented in front of the Pharaoh. Cleanliness, especially in Egypt, was a real big thing for them. Um, so now all that's been said, and he's about to take his father to be buried in Canaan. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, pick back up on verse 6. Pharaoh said, go up and bury your father as he made you swear to do. So Joseph went up to bury his father. All Pharaoh's officials accompanied him, the dignitaries of his court and all the dignitaries of Egypt, beside all the members of Joseph's household, and his brothers and those belonging to his father's household. Only their children and their flocks and herds were left in Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went up with him. It was a very large company. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, near the Jordan, they lamented loudly and bitterly, and there Joseph observed a 7-day period of mourning for his father. When the Canaanites who lived there saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, the Egyptians are holding a solemn ceremony of mourning. That is why the place near the Jordan is called Abero Mizraim. So now they're in the land of Canaan again with their father, and they stop at this threshing floor. Now, a threshing floor is basically just an area where they would throw grain down, and they would have like animals, donkeys, walk around this floor, usually like in a circle, to help break up the grain. Think about like an old windmill. That's what a mill would do. It would use the wind to spin this thing to like grind up and crush, meal. And they made mention that it was called a different name after that, and it's because the Egyptians were there mourning. And they notice it's a large company. They say, "Hey, this is a big deal. Something big is going on." All right, so these next two verses are going to finish up this section. So Jacob's sons did as he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre, which Abraham had brought along the field as a burial place for Ephron the Hittite. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt together with his brothers and all the brothers who had gone with him to bury his father. So, just wrapping it up, go. They bury him like they promised, and now they've returned to Egypt. Now we're going to get into his brothers are now in fear for themselves because, oh, well, father's passed away. Joseph holds all this power. Joseph is now going to punish us for what we did to him so long ago. So let's see what happens with that. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him? So they sent word to Joseph saying, your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please, forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When their message came to him, Joseph wept. Now they're appealing to him, saying, hey, this is what God wants. They're not saying, they're not trying to say, hey, we're sorry we did this, we're sorry we did this. We're saying God wants you to forgive us. And they're using their father in that way as well. But then it says Joseph weeps. He said Joseph wept. And Joseph has something to say about it. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. Here we go again. They're bowing before him, just like so long ago when he had the dream saying they would be bowing before him. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph's like, hey, no hard feelings. Don't worry about it. God put me here. God put me here. You try to do something so evil, so cruel, so bad to me, and God took all that and flipped it and made it good. I've said that before. God can take something that's so bad and then turn it around and make it good. Good will always triumph over evil. The Lord will always triumph over the enemy. So he's just telling them, God put me here, even though you thought you did it, the Lord did it before you. Finishing up this chapter, it's going to talk about the death of Joseph. Joseph dies, but then the people of Israel, sons of Israel, they continue to live in the land of Egypt and continue to prosper. This is going to be the end of Genesis, and then we'll start up Exodus. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived 110 years and saw the third generation of Ephraim's children. Also, the children of Machir, sons of Manasseh, were placed at birth on Joseph's knees. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph made the Israelites swear an oath and said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones from this place. So Joseph died at the age of 110, and after they embalmed him, he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. Now, you notice there was a word there. They're starting to talk about Israelites. They're calling themselves Israelites now. So Joseph dies, and he's basically saying, even though we're still here, I'm dying. The Lord will take you back to the land that has been promised. Because at this time, there's nobody's in the land of that this covenant promise that the Lord has made that started all the way back with Abram. Abraham. They're still not in this land yet. And this is foreshadowing that even though we're here, the Lord is still going to take our family, the Israelites, and give us this promised land. All right. That's it for Genesis. That wraps it up. After this, we're going to start tackling Exodus. And Exodus, a lot of people know about Exodus. We know one key figure that it's going to open up with, but I'll save that for that video. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. And as always, God bless.